to the Foreign Report, your weekly foreign policy show that gives you the gory details of geopolitics with hopefully some laughs along the way. I am your host, Seena Ghaznavi. With me is Travis T-Seps Irvine.
Yo, what up?
FBZ and T-Seps in the house.
Yo, Second Amendment rights over here. Come on.
And with us today, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. We've got an amazing show for you this week. The incredible, the philosophical. Don't laugh at that. Trae Crowder, comedian, amazing.
Yes.
Back.
Hey, guys.
Our
Thanks
first
for coming
repeat
back.
guest,
Glad to be
right?
back.
Is it
really?
repeat?
Repeat guest, right?
Marcus has been on. I mean,
Yeah, and the Ed Larson.
yeah.
All right, you're in good company.
Yeah, you're in great
Yeah.
company. Yeah. Hall
Love
of
it.
Fame guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you got when Ed's on here? Is it still? Do you get really hard into foreign policy?
No, it's usually when Ceena's out of town and I
Yeah.
only talk about domestic policy.
Yeah.
And then Ed's like, I thought this show was called The Foreign Report. And then I'm like, yeah, Ceena's gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no shade to eggs. I'm pretty sure I told you guys the last time I did this. It's like I feel like foreign policy specifically, I think, is my dumbest personal area of
Sure.
in politics. I have plenty of other probably dumber areas outside of politics.
Right.
But just where politics is concerned, foreign policy is like
Well, that's what I love.
think it's a typical American thing,
Yeah.
maybe. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know.
Right.
This is the white space we want to fill with white people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, last time you were on, there wasn't a war on.
No.
Yeah.
And this is.
We all knew it was coming, though. I think some war.
No,
a war.
I was told no new wars.
Right. Yeah.
And when I punched that vote for Trump button, as you guys know, I've done many times, I was told no new wars. And now this is like the biggest war of our lifetime.
Right.
Well, that's a really good question, though. Did you think actually that war was inevitable?
Oh, I mean, I feel like, in the run up to the election, of course, they were saying if Kamala got elected, it would happen. But there was a lot of talk of like, well, I say the run up to the election for 20 years or whatever, the idea of war with Iran or whatever. And
Since the Bush administration.
Iran, right?
Yeah, you're doing it great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I want to say Iran.
Of course.
Sure.
It's in your blood.
It is, very much so. But like, obviously, you said there wasn't a war on. There was wars.
Sure.
We just weren't
Right.
directly
Yeah.
involved. Still, pretty
Tangentially.
involved. Yeah, tangentially.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, I'm never going to be surprised when America under anyone gets into a war, really. But especially Donald Trump, just because he ran on this whole America First, no new wars thing, that,
Right.
You
it
didn't
meant
believe.
nothing to me. I don't
Okay.
believe anything that he ever
But that's
says.
crazy
Right.
because for me, the one thing I did believe was that Trump didn't want to get into wars because they're so unpopular because of how badly we've done in all of them. And I was like, he's not going to get it. It's bad for the ratings. It's bad for the headlines. It's bad for this. And again, totally wrong, completely wrong.
But see, I thought that and you're right that it is bad, but I thought the conventional wisdom, right, for years was that it was like a boon to a president. Like, that movie, Wag the Dog,
Yeah.
which is not
yeah.
a huge hit or nothing, but that was like the premise of that. Like, oh, we need a war because we're in bad shape. And then,
Right.
obviously, but it's a completely different situation. But after 9/11 and, Bush threw that first pitch and all this stuff, and he's just to the moon, the moon.
Yeah.
And so I know that in reality, anybody with a brain would know that it would not go that way with this particular war. I thought that there might be people who still, thought that it might help or work.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely helped with the Epstein files.
There's also that. Yeah.
There's also
There's
that.
that.
There's
yeah.
also that.
That's what we call it on this show. It's Operation Epstein Fury.
There we go.
But
Not
what
Epic Fury.
what do y'all think the reason was? Like, that's the thing, I feel like that's been debated from the beginning. Like, what are we doing
What are
there?
we
And
doing?
everybody's like, well, we're doing this. Then next week it's like, actually it was this instead of that the whole
Right.
time.
And it's not a war
We're helping
either.
the Iranian
Yeah.
people, and then
Yes.
like 3 weeks later, he's like, I will kill every man, woman, and child in Iran.
Right. It's about
Wipe
regime
out
change.
an ancient
Yeah.
civilization
will
Yeah.
die tonight. Yeah.
on Easter.
Yeah,
Yes.
Easter Sunday.
Which
yeah.
I still am confused about as a holiday in general, but that's besides the point. I still don't get zombie Jesus inherently. But doing that on Easter seems crazy.
Very Christian.
Absolutely. I said it was funny to me. So first of all, I'm one of the myriad things that's weird about me, given my background, is like I didn't grow up in the church really at all. I was surrounded by it. I'm not totally ignorant to it, but I'm pretty Bible dumb, as I say. So like, I know
You and me both.
I know. I'm saying you're like, I don't really get Easter. I kind of don't either. I mean, I know enough, but the first thing I thought when he did that on Easter Sunday was I just immediately pictured some like church in my hometown or in Wayne County where my wife's from or something in the past. The idea of the pastor there, it's a just like explicitly MAGA church and they all love Donald Trump and it's Easter Sunday and they're praising the Lord or whatever. And the idea of the pastor, like, let's check in with our, most holy president this morning and, and puts up on a projector. So he's got a nice Easter message for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's open the straight,
you crazy bastards,
bomb up your ass or whatever, you crazy bastards. Praise Allah. And thank you very much. And it's just like, okay,
well,
like,
now we'll turn to the book of Job.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like, how do you guys spend that? But I mean, I ask myself that question all the time.
Yeah. I think the reason we got into the war is like, one, he was convinced by Netanyahu and influenced, and I think part of the convincing was that he wants to be the president that did all the things that no other presidents could do.
Right.
Okay.
Which is how it was supposedly pitched to him by the Netanyahu team. Benjamin Netanyahu's been trying to get this for 20 plus years, and now he finally hooked his rare trout.
Wasn't that one of the different sort of like lines that they were putting out there was it's like Israel was like gonna do it anyway or something.
Yeah,
and
Marco
that's what
Rubio.
they told. Yeah, and he's like, so and they're like, that's actually what we meant by America first.
Yeah,
right. They're like, no, you guys can't go. We're gonna go first. you know?
It's funny with all the war stuff. I feel like I'm more America first now more than ever.
Sure.
I feel like this is not America first.
This is not
I was
America
like,
first.
I think I'm America first.
Yeah.
Because none of this is.
You're right. No, that opening weekend, Marco accidentally said that, and then he had to retract and kind of backstep and everything. But he said, we were told Israel's going to fire some bombs, and if we want to be prepared for the backlash, then we also had to participate. And that's more or less how this whole thing kicked off.
Well, yeah, Bibi was in the Situation Room, sitting across from him, all this like weird stuff, doing the presentation. And he's very influenced by a good show.
Loves a good show. Loves a good presentation.
Good 3-slide PowerPoint deck,
Right.
and you can get some policy or a war story.
Just feeding him cheeseburgers, tell him how great he is. Like, if you do this, legendary status. Yeah.
But I mean, I did like. What do you guys think about like how, the backlash from it or like the MAGA civil war and some of the supporters and stuff and the whole like the people that were America first and have actually, at least some of them, like stuck by that, not flip-flopped on that just because he did, as they've done with so many other things in the past. Like this one, it seems to be an actual sticking point for at least some percentage of them.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, like, is there, are the cracks starting to show and him being the, infallible leader of MAGA and stuff over this in particular, not to mention gas prices, which is, of course,
the
$70
the
for me to
biggest thing.
pump gas today on 11 gallons.
Yeah,
and that was at Costco.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
I drive a Jeep Wrangler. It took more than $100.
Oh, my God.
And that's LA. I mean, back in Ohio, it's $5 gas.
Right.
That hasn't happened ever.
Yeah.
Right. So with all that, like...
Well, I think you could speak to probably the cracks in everything, but I think Tucker and MTG,
they were always kind of going down that road anyway.
Yeah, they were like, okay, this is not right. And I think, but plenty of them, at least from a fraudster's perspective, really, people are on the ride. And you're not going to get off that roller coaster if you're already on the ride. He's your guy. You're not going to leave. So that's why he still maintains that bit. But what do you think about the cracks, though?
I mean, that's the kind of the thing I was excited for you to come on and for us to talk about, because it's like we haven't really gotten to it yet on the domestic side because, foreign policy, but then foreign policy is domestic. MTG and Tucker have been mad about it for a while. And then the Epstein files as well. People are already mad about that. But now you're seeing the full-on meltdowns coming from Megyn Kelly. And my favorite, Alex Jones, has just gone complete reversal. Just like Trump is haunted by demons. I was for him. And now I don't know. He's just been taken over. And I'm going to pray for him. And, folks, I was on the ride. And now I can't do it anymore. So when you lost Alex Jones, thank you. Hey, I remember calling in your radio show in Election Day 2016.
That's right.
Trae and the boys were on Sirius Radio, and I called in as Alex Jones from the first class of an airplane, by the way,
Woo!
before we were taking off. I was with the Gary Johnson campaign. I'd never been flown first class in my life. And I'm yelling like Alex Jones on the phone from first class. And then I got cut off, I remember. And then you guys called me back. I'm like, the globalists are trying to silence me. Anyway, we're about to take off. Great talking to you guys.
Nazi leprechaun Nick Fuentes, he's also
he's been
very anti this whole situation, right? So it's like there's, like I said, I don't know, there's like factions forming and whatnot, and but I just always wonder when it comes to regular people, because I'll hear it anecdotally all the time. I don't know if you guys know Jeffrey Asmus, the comedian, but I just did a podcast with him, and he was saying his parents are both MAGA up in suburban Minnesota, and that they are like, they're no longer on board now, like just recently, right? And we were talking about how indicative that is, or, you know, for like how much can you extrapolate that or whatnot? Because I worry about people saying that, but at the end of the day, or on election day, it not mattering for like enough of them. Because I saw this other clip of this dude who was pissed about it all, but he'd always been MAGA. And this guy was like a barstool dude, but he was doing a political podcast, and they were asking about it, and he's mad at Trump and he's pissed off or whatnot. And they were like, he feels betrayed and all this shit. And the host of the politics podcast was like, so you gonna flip sides? You think you're gonna vote blue in the election? He was like, oh God, no, absolutely not. And it's like, and I know a lot of them will be like that. And my position on that is like, okay, well, maybe just sit home or vote for somebody else. You know, like, I'll take that. Just don't vote for Trump again. And the guy asked, he was like, so what? You're not gonna vote at all? And the guy was like, well, I mean, I have to vote, obviously. So it's like he's mad, but he's still just going to vote for, obviously not Trump in the midterms, but, you know, MAGA generally.
But sure, there's going to be non-MAGA candidates, presumably, in the midterms, or there's not going to be enough energy to get the midterms. But I'm looking out maybe another 2 years to the next presidential election. Do you think, like, a non-MAGA candidate is going to be the way forward? Like that?
You mean for Republicans specifically? Yeah, I don't know. It felt for a while that they were only getting crazier. Right? So, like, and I hate to even think about what that means, right? You know, obviously, like our boy, right? JD,
yeah, amazing hat, by the way.
He's going to.
I know. I've already requested one of those
by a fan. Yeah, which I can't do. Although you might be able to get.
Well, let's say it for the audio listeners. JD Vance is a fake hillbilly, and this is fakehillbilly.com.
So maybe you can get the hats there if you want to check. Maybe a fan brought this to me at a Virginia show.
Okay,
and but that fan was from, like, I think near where JD was from, you know, in Appalachia, and maybe in the West Virginia side or whatever. But either way, you know, I don't know about y'all. I hate to even. I always say I'm not superstitious, but I guess I'm a little stitious, like that thing that people say, because I'm always like, I don't want to jinx anything.
Yeah, let's knock on some wood. You're okay.
It's more like I just don't want to look stupid later, I think. But, like, I just don't think that JD's, like, got what it takes, you know.
Neither do we.
We cover it every week. He doesn't have the swagger. He doesn't have the juice
at all. I just don't think that he.
Well, Travis was at the convention where right before when he got announced.
That's right.
And I remember Travis did like a man on the street thing. Oh, every person he talked to was like, "What, this guy?"
Yeah, they're disappointed that
no
JD
one likes
was a pick.
him.
And again, talk about time passing so fast. That was like 2 years ago almost now.
Yeah.
It was the summer of 2024. I was in Milwaukee for the convention, and everyone they were like bummed because we broke the news. It like happened while we were out, and I was like, JD's the nominee. What do you think? No one was happy.
But I don't think we should underestimate how powerful Peter Thiel is and his ability to make us think whatever he wants us to think.
Yeah, and we do have to recognize, I mean, that's what created JD in the first place as a political candidate. Peter Thiel.
God.
Right. So, and if it isn't him, I don't know, you know, like
Marco Rubio is the other name getting tossed.
What do you think about Marco?
I feel like he doesn't, I mean, same thing, basically. Like, I don't, like, you know, he's tried before in the primaries, got like, you know, worked by Chris Christie or whatever. That time. That
and Trump.
And Trump, the little hand thing?
Right,
the little hand,
you know,
little
got,
Marco.
like, embarrassed and emasculated in front of everybody, and he couldn't, and he seemed to just like lock up and not know what to do about any of it. So obviously that's been a long time, but I don't know. Again, don't want to jinx anything. I'm not particularly scared of any of them, like electorally, but never underestimate like the Dems' ability to it up anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sort of just, hand it to them on a silver platter, basically, through whatever means. That's always a possibility. Plus, there's also always, well, will they even be legitimate elections? Yeah. Or like at least heavily sort of, stacked deck in their favor, even if, it's not a complete sham. Which they're doing that right now.
I mean, maybe I'm naive. I think the elections will be fine. No? Man, this is a weird...
it's a weird question, yeah.
Like, at this point, I just won't rule anything out. Right. I think you're probably right, because I know that the states are so involved in running the elections for themselves, and so, like, obviously tons of states are not going to, be on board with any kind of chicanery like that, but then others probably will, and it might come down to, like, who, because, like, wasn't that at Raffensperger or whatever in Georgia?
Oh, in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, yeah.
That guy, like, that guy held the line ultimately when push came to shove, despite being a Republican. And it's like, there's a couple of that guys, who don't do that or whatever.
Right.
Then, who knows? But also, again, just all the gerrymandering and shit that they'll do and are doing to just sort of continue to, like I said, stack the deck in their favor, even if there are,
I mean, Giuliani's ghost is going to be running around trying to make things happen. I mean, he's on critical condition right now.
What? We're going to lose America's mayor?
He's definitely not going to make it to the midterms or the next presidential election.
I mean, he has not been America's mayor for quite a while. Unfortunately.
From your perspective, when you think about war and when you think about America getting involved in this war, and I think I asked you this before when you were on last time, but now we're in the wars now.
It's a big one.
What is America's role in the rest of the world? What should it be? Or maybe from your experience of what other people think America's role should be in the world.
I mean, I've never thought, the whole like Team America World Police thing, what they were making fun of 22 years ago with that idea. Like, I don't.
Still could be come out yesterday.
It holds up.
Right.
Fine.
I've never bought into that, but it's like, we put ourselves in this position. Like, there's so many like countries or our allies and stuff or whatever that it's like, that's just the tacit understanding. And it's like, you're going to do that for us, and so, and I don't like it. But then like when something happens like Russia invading Ukraine, right? When it's just like clear to any sane person on earth that, who the bad guy is, at least in my opinion, then, I think we should like help in some way. But when it's something like this, where it's just no one even really is agreed upon what the justification for it is even supposed to be. That's just like totally asinine to me. And it's like, when after I was in high school, but like after 9/11 and Afghanistan, right? And it's like, yeah, totally. What are you going to do? But then, when they start talking about Iraq or whatever, and even as a teenager, I was like, what? Why them? You know? And like, I thought that was stupid. So it's like, it just depends on the context. But like, it's that whole, what is it? It's like when all you got's a hammer, everything looks like a nail or whatever. It's like our military industrial complex, and it's like that's our number one thing. Oh yeah. And a lot of people have a vested interest in making sure we keep like blowing shit up.
Well, Trae, it sounds like you're for the Islamic Republic getting a nuclear weapon. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like, I mean, they are 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon.
Constantly. For 20 years, they've been 2 weeks away.
Well, they're really serious. I mean, what's ironic is that they are more serious now about nuclear weapons than they've ever been in the 47 years they've been in power.
I mean, of course they are. It's like, like we've motivated them heavily to
because this guy, this Supreme Leader, the son, he's actually into the weapon. His dad was not really into it.
They like fucking hang the banner and everything when we killed the 87-year-old Ayatollah. We did it.
Mission
and then
accomplished.
replaced him with his like more extremist and nuke happy son or whatever, who also just had his dad and all his other friends and family members murdered
up.
by us.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be super chill about stuff, you know, in light of all that. So how is that any kind of victory? Again, and the other one was 87 years old and I think had cancer, right? Or at least was rumored to
A
have cancer.
strong breeze would have killed him.
Right.
Yeah.
Just wait. Like, so
They made him a martyr. That's the
Exactly,
thing that
that
again,
too, that
I will
too.
never forgive United States and Israel for making this guy a martyr. And I know so many people in my community and my diaspora was just like, yeah, they were like crying with joy. I'm like, I get it. He was bad. He caused a lot of harm and trauma and murder of his own people. But like, you gave him the gift of eternal life, basically. You gave him the greatest gift possible.
Well, that thing too, again, about our role, you know, the people over there, they were protesting and getting murdered for it. And that's all, you know, super fucked up. That is not very cash money of, you know, the regime to do that type of thing, of course. But I just, like a lot of people, when we already alluded to it earlier, but I just never for 1 second believed that had anything actually to do with us going, you know, helping the Iranian people. It's like that was, you know, I just never bought that. If I did, if it, you know, and depending on the situation and who was in charge, and if it seemed like that was legitimately a part of it, I might feel a little bit differently, but I just, you know, never bought that. And again, it was proven on Easter Sunday, not that far after, when he threatened to kill them all.
But even when they would talk about the strategic importance or whatever the goals were of everything, they in the beginning they would put like, you know, free the Iranian people like kind of in like second or third, and then it slowly got lower and lower, and then it just wasn't even. Not even on the list, not even in the last paragraph, nothing.
The other thing that, again, like I said, like a lot of Americans, I'm super ignorant about a lot of this stuff, you know, global geopolitics. I did not realize the level of real leverage and everything that Iran has over there and like the position that they're in. I was not like cognizant of all that, really. I never really thought about it or been aware of it, but it's like that just makes it, you know, doubly stupid in retrospect. Looking back now that I do know that, and now they've made it apparent, it's like, dude, what are we doing?
And it's funny now because they've thrown mines and stuff in the Strait and stuff like that to mess with things. But now what they learned is that they don't even need to do that. They need to be like, the strait is closed. And everyone's like, oh shit, it's closed. We don't even know what they're going to do. They're like, buddy, you can't go through, but you can if you pay us $2 million. And everyone's like, okay, I guess we better pay the money. They literally don't have to do anything because they can sit. It's a big plateau in Iran. So that you could be on top of the plateau with like binoculars looking down at the Persian Gulf.
At a giant ship.
And then it's just like, throw a drone and hit a ship. Okay? That's how easy it is for them to mess things up. And the big old tanker is going to call their insurance company and be like, hey, can we go through the strait? And some guy in like, you know, Fort Wayne, Indiana in the insurance shop is like, you got to turn around right now. We're not doing this.
Right. And another aspect of it is that, again, I did not have a grasp on before all this started, is like you said, you stand up there, you just throw a drone, like a cheap-ass drone at this thing. If we, through whatever means, like shoot that drone down, it will be with like a $5 million missile for this $15,000 drone or whatever. So it's that is like a win for them, really.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just to put, you know,
the asymmetric warfare is so crazy that we joke on the show very morbidly about no health care, no food, no clean water, but we will have millions of dollars of rockets to blow up $20,000, $30,000 drones from whatever country wants to shoot them at us.
Right. And he said that too, right? About like we can't do daycare and that type of thing.
He literally said those words.
We are fighting a war.
We're not doing daycare.
We can't do
We have a giant war to fund.
Which again, if that should be in like every campaign ad in existence from anybody on the left going into.
Oh yeah, because that's going to get the parent vote.
Yeah.
They want daycare.
We should take a quick break.
We'll take a quick break.
Yeah, and when we come back, we've got more Trae Crowder. This is the Foreign Report. Travis, Seena, Trae. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi. This is your weekly foreign policy show. We just talked a lot about foreign policy and how crazy this war is with our guest Trae Crowder. Travis Irvine's obviously here as well. I love doing a 3-person show in here. It's nice having a guest in here.
Oh, it's nice.
Which, by the way, I meant to say, black on black on black.
Absolutely. Johnny Cash up
That's
in
it.
here.
That's
yeah.
us.
We are the men in black.
We didn't plan this.
No.
So let's talk about the chaos that is this administration. You cover it, I'm sure, all the time. I have friends that work in various federal enforcement fields, and it's so funny to know that Cash Patel. Hi, it's Cash Patel. That's the impression I do for my kids.
Yeah, and they love it, by the way. And I love it.
They say, Daddy, do Cash Patel. They have no idea.
Do it while you can. You might get fired soon.
I know. Here we go, guys. Let's do it.
Good.
Come on now.
Yeah,
what I'm saying,
you do the eye. You got the eye part.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Anyways,
He's hammered all the time.
he's just hammered. So he is drinking on the job. What's your take on Cash Patel? What have you felt about
Pete
him?
Hegseth's drinking on the
Pete
job.
Hegseth. We've got Secretary Lori Chavez de Ramier.
The labor secretary.
Yeah,
she was supposed to be one of the benign good ones.
You saw
in
that
this
came out of
shit
left
show.
field. I was like, wow, they
Yeah.
like to party over there. What's your take on this?
Not for it, you know. I don't like.
Bold take.
Sounds like
Not
you're
a
for the
fan.
Islamic Republic getting a nuclear weapon.
Wow.
right. But it's
Breaking
like,
news.
you know, this was like an explicit part, I think, of like Project 2025, like part of this. But like during the January 6th commission, we heard all this stuff about how behind the scenes at the time, right, there was like there kind of two camps formed in the Trump administration. It was like Team Sane and Team Crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why they didn't successfully overthrow the, government or
Right,
whatever,
right.
the way they tried to. And the idea that, well, we're not going to let that happen again, right? It's going to be nothing but Team Crazy. And there's just like no sort of.
There's no Mike Pence.
Yeah, right. There's
Yeah.
no, any kind of like reasonability or like level-headedness or whatever, or just dissent at all, obviously, is like not allowed for or put up with. And because I was just like Hegseth, he just keeps firing all these people, right? And it's like now he's
qualified
like
generals, like 20 generals at this
right.
point.
And now he's like bringing his wife into the meetings instead
I
and stuff
saw
like that. And it's like that's super alarming because one thing with the military in particular, I would think during the first Trump go round when people were talking about like this guy has like the nuclear codes or whatever, and I would always think like, okay, but surely there's like high level generals and stuff, who push come to shove, they won't let something like that happen, right? And then after the fact, he didn't literally try to nuke anything. I don't think he thought about it with that hurricane or whatever, but not. But Mark Meadows, I think, had said that like that was a real thing. Like there were conversations with some of the high level military people being like, "Hey, we're all in agreement," but like not that, right? But those dudes are not there anymore.
They're gone.
Yeah, right. They're excising them very deliberately, and that shit really freaks me out. Cash Patel, I mean, there's important shit the FBI should be doing, you know, and he doesn't seem interested in that. They said we're interested in like partying with the hockey team and that type of
flying
thing.
around with his
and
girlfriend.
he wasting taxpayer dollars on the private jet trips and all this stuff with his country singer girlfriend and everything, and that all is stupid. But it's like, I'm more worried, I think, about the Hegseth part probably of the two of them.
Oh, I think I agree with you. The Hegseth part is the more clear and present danger, but it is strange that, there was that thing that came out about Cash Patel where like his subordinate went to like the Times or something, was just like, he's so crazy that he's kind of out on his own island and it like lets us actually do our job. Right. But then they just indicted Comey again. Yeah. For the 86-47 thing.
Yeah, the seashells.
The seashells.
The Instagram post.
And then.
Oh, right. How is that indictable, though?
Because it's a threat to the president.
Okay.
But if you
I
look
have a
on
hat
Amazon.
That says that, too. So that's not good.
No, you're going to be in trouble.
No,
don't worry. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, our president's former personal lawyer, said, just because Comey got indicted, it doesn't mean anyone who has a hat or does anything that says 8647 will also be indicted. So it just applies to Comey.
Right. That's just that.
Because on Amazon, you could buy the hat. You can buy. There's thousands of these things.
Thousands of hats.
So
get ready.
I just don't know. I think this is I think we believe in these institutions, or we're supposed to be. And even before Trump got in the first time, trust in these institutions was at an all-time low. But at least during his first term or whatever, we were like, okay, the FBI is actually like, okay, it's like fine. Like they're running. Right. But now it's like they can really do damage.
I know. Well, that's what. So I I used to work for the Department of Energy, right? And like, that was one thing I thought a lot about in the first Trump term was like, because having worked there, I knew that the vast majority of people that do the day-to-day operations and work of any given federal agency are like people that have been there, you know, for years, you know, like career bureaucrats or whatever. And then there's political appointees at the top, and sometimes those people are idiots. And normally the people underneath them, you know, sort of like roll their eyes at some of their shit or whatever, but just try to keep the trains running on time. And like a lot of those people are like competent, you know, and I knew that. And so I was like, so when like Rick Perry got made the Secretary of Energy
from Dancing with the Stars,
right? Yeah, I was like, you know, it should still be generally okay because you know I know the people who actually work there, you know, and they're still there. All the same people are still there. And but again, that's like, you know, they figured that out eventually.
Yeah.
And like they're, you know, trying to account for that as much as they can, I feel like, you know.
Yeah. That's kind of how this administration started, was with the Doge. And they got a lot of those people out from every department. They're just like,
and making people who have any sort of integrity like resign basically or get fired, you know what I mean? Like forcing them out in whatever way they can, and then all you have left is team crazy and or true believers. You know,
I wonder what's going to happen when the next administration comes. Like, how broken will everything be? I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, how do you even recover? Like, did you hire new bureaucrats that are kind of? It's almost going to be too hard to unwind. Like, how do you even begin to build back trust? Because we all know, like, you know, we got kids, when they break the tower or break the toy, it's pretty hard to put it back together. You know,
well,
it takes a lot longer.
Will probably happen, in my opinion, is that let's say the pendulum swings back because they f***ed up so bad and like Democrats get elected, right?
Yeah, Mom
they,
Johnny.
They
no,
try to
not born here,
they try to figure out the answer to your question, and they start trying to work on putting it all back together, and you know, like putting out the fires and all that stuff. And in the meantime, there are still like ongoing ripple effects from all this that are still unfolding and still making things not great as they're trying to get it, you know, get shit back on track. They won't be able to accomplish that in 2 years when they get to their midterms, and then there'll be a red wave followed by, you know, or they'll be like, what are these idiots doing? And they'll vote, you know, they'll get Republicans back in there who then will, you know, get the jackhammer back out and go back to what they were doing before. Yeah, right. Now, me and on my politics pod this week, we were talking about like Graham Plattner in Maine or whatever.
Maine, because that's a ranked choice state.
Right. And I like that dude, right? But my co-host was talking about how he's like, it's possible that it all kind of hinges on that particular race, depending on how it shakes out, right?
Senate.
He's like, like, he's control of the Senate, and thus to more Supreme Court justices, that real opportunity to sort of push back in any real ways. Like, it could all hinge on this race. And I was like, right. And I like the guy, but it's just so funny to me that that is true. And it's a dude who had like a Nazi tattoo or whatever, where it's like, where it's like, it's just always, it always has to be like something. Yeah. There can never just be like, this guy rules, you know what I mean? This guy's awesome. Like, this is a clear cut.
Or he just got pissed a few times. You know, he was kind of like an angry boss. You know what I mean? Or like just something more mild than Nazi adjacent.
Because you think he gets into like a general election. I could see that being a tough pill to swallow, especially because people are so uninformed. Sure. And if that's all they know from it, it's like, he has a Nazi tattoo. And they don't, you know, like, I just worry about that. I'd rather have a guy that, and again, I do like him. I'm just saying, just really wish he didn't have a Nazi tattoo covered up on his chest.
I heard him talk with Mehdi Hassan about it, I think. And he said, you know, pretty much when I learned it was what it was, like days later, I got it covered up and all this stuff. And it's like, how didn't you know? I mean, when I saw it, I was like, I don't know.
Okay, see, well, you just said how didn't you know? But I didn't legitimately, I'm not bullshitting because I like the guy. When I heard he had a Nazi tattoo, when I saw that picture of what it actually was, I was like, I had no idea that was
I wouldn't know. I mean, when I
looks like a metal skull, you know?
I thought it was going to be like swastika. Hitler's face or a swastika, something really overt. But it's like, no, like that. And you know what else? He went through 4 background checks with the federal government that did also gang and hate crime related investigations on him. So they looked at all of his tattoos.
Right.
So the other thing that you could say there is, well, they're Nazis in the government, and they knew and they were happy about it.
They got us to the moon. Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all the old posts and shit too, like with all that.
Oh, the Reddit posts and stuff.
Yeah, with all that, I'm like, come on, man. Like I feel like a lot of that stuff we're gonna have to just we're gonna have to chill out on that type of shit, in my opinion. Especially as my co-host pointed out, especially as we start getting further into this era where people who grew up on the internet and shit posting and stuff are now in positions where they're running for office and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people are gonna find shit like that.
Or just hit the delete button every now and then. Do a little
Yeah,
spring
but
cleaning.
I think you post
post
enough, you lose
But
track.
people just don't do that.
They really don't.
Some people
I mean,
do
I got
maybe,
stuff from back in the day, but I think the worst stuff I've said is probably
on
in
this
the last,
show,
in the last
few
show in the last
weeks.
2 years, 2 weeks.
Right, yeah. No, and Plattner, I mean, he cleared the field because they had the former Democrat governor of Maine
Right.
in the
That was-
He was
race.
78 years old, right?
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about
and
chaos.
Susan Collins is 73.
Yeah.
Talk about chaos. Chuck Schumer pushing
He pushed
Janet Mills
Yeah.
into that
So-
race.
But that's interesting to me because I feel that's what's happening in the Democrat Party right now. They
Yes.
are saying, no, we want to run working class people.
Yes.
Graham's an oyster farmer, but he served in the military. And it's like you kind of have that working class combo. I feel that's how the Democrats actually, not just, again, if we have elections, 2026, 2028, working class versus billionaires. That's the battle right now.
You're totally right, and that totally is what they should do. But then you have like Chuck Schumer at every turn trying to undermine that because like that's a threat. You know, he's like a left-wing populist or whatever, and it's a threat to like big moneyed interest in Wall Street and Israel and all that shit that all the moderate Dems love, and they've been in control for so long, and they're just not gonna, go quietly, apparently. And that's what I mean. It's like self-sabotage for the party as a whole, but that's, nothing new really, but it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because, yes, that is the path forward. It couldn't be clearer.
Yeah, get a union guy.
Right. Like, but I don't know.
It just seems so much easier to stand on principles and values. And you can actually, I think now the mentality needs to shift because now you should be able to fundraise on that.
Right.
You should be able to, like there's an authenticity that people can see and feel and like and enjoy and want to engage with, as opposed to, wow, you're so transparently a shell of a human, even though you're saying moderate policies are the way to go. I mean, I think we want to vote for someone that we actually trust.
Right. And that reminds me, so Charles Schumer went to the same high school in Brooklyn as Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is somebody who pushed Graham Plattner, I think, ahead. And not just in polls, but getting people out. I mean, Bernie, since you've been on the show 9 months ago, Bernie's been doing this this working class tour, fighting oligarchy tour. And it's like, again, he's getting huge crowds out in like red West Virginia and these red in Kansas and places like that. And it's like, I just feel like the working class, the economy's huge right now. And if the Dems aren't running on a whole working class ethos versus Peter Thiel and the billionaires, then what are we even doing?
Well, that's the thing too. I think the Dems, there was all this talk that like the Dems were pushing the trans stuff, they were pushing the DEI stuff. They weren't.
No.
They just let the other side say that
Say
they were.
that. Yeah.
And all they should have just
And
talked
hung it
about
around Kamala's neck, basically.
Yeah, and the worst thing is when they called Kamala a leftist. I thought that's the funniest thing ever. It's like there's no leftists would put themselves 6 feet under before they would say that she's a leftist. Okay, there's no chance that she's a leftist on any sort of level. But it's like they just let them say all these things. You should just go right back to the economy. Go right back to how they're pillaging your money. Go right back how that we're spending $5 million missile defense things to shoot down $20,000 drones, and they love it. They're eating it up.
I think that is the only option for them and what to do going forward. It's the only thing that has any chance of working. But it's like, it's just funny to me that there are people out there that it's, even if they think that is a part of it, that they're like, I just can't handle the thing about not being able to say the word retarded or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like the woke shit.
Yeah.
Like just that one thing like outweighs all this other stuff, even if they are aware of it. For so many people, it's like such an albatross.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't like abandon trans people or nothing like that either. It's just like you have to keep pushing like Plattner said something like there is a common threat to all of us, and it's not trans people, it's billionaires.
Yeah.
Right.
Just always have that be part of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, listen, don't worry about it. This is what matters, and we all agree on this. So just
all those
hammer
people that were like, a trans woman is winning swimming races. We just started a war.
Right.
We just, I hope
a $50 billion war.
I hope that trans swimmer is really like feeling the pain of your vote right now, because we're in a war because you thought that was the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I know. And that's so many comedians, were like a part of that for the same reasons.
Joe
For
Rogan,
like cancel
Theo
culture.
Von,
You can't joke about anything anymore. All this stuff, like in that, because of that, they were okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of those dudes were part of that group we started off talking about, of being like, they believed the America First part, and that's what they like about him, is the no wars thing. But again, to me, that makes them naive.
Yes.
But yeah, I just I don't know, the way some people, balance those scales in their mind.
And it's so convenient for Theo Von now to be like, we're the terrorists, bro. And it's like, all right, thanks.
Where were you 2 years ago?
It's really great. I hope you're happy with your like 7 houses.
Speaking of being naive, I might be or whatever. I think that Theo might really be kind of going through it with all of that, maybe.
I
because
don't
he actually feels bad he played an active role.
Again, I don't know. I know Theo a little bit, but I haven't seen him in forever, and I have no idea what he's actually thinking. But I know Rogan himself said explicitly that bit Mark Maron had about Theo having Hitler on his podcast, really upset Theo very badly.
Oh, good.
And I think that, and I've seen some of the clips that he's had and shit like recently.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I get the impression that he might genuinely be having a little bit of a come to Jesus sort of moment, but I could be wrong.
Even if, let's just believe that for a minute, right? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, or I'll buy that, right? I think even before that, if you have an audience, any size audience, frankly, and you get on this mic, you have to have a responsibility for what you say.
Yeah.
And like that to me is like the sin that I'll never be able to forgive, that you could just feel like it doesn't matter, that you can't say these things, or if you say these things, there aren't really ramifications to what you say.
Well, that clip from Joe Rogan that went viral and gets pops up all the time, talking, not when Kash Patel was on there, but talking about when Kash Patel had been on there and the backlash he got. And Rogan says, he goes, I mean, what am I going to do? Push back? No. And it's like, yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys saw Zach Galifianakis, a clip of him yesterday on Conan's podcast.
Oh, yes.
Talking about, then he was talking about like the responsibility. If a comedian can talk to those people in that context, he was like, but when they do, they have a responsibility to, at least a little bit take the piss out of them, or call them to he was saying it's like the court jester thing, that whole thing about.
Because he did the interview with Obama and he stayed in character. He did his job as a comedian in that character and just treated Obama like trash.
Right.
And it was great because he pushed him in all these different ways.
It also works for like Obama too.
Yeah.
So it's like, even for the politician, when you know what I mean? If they like handle it well, if you go after them and they handle it, it's like everybody wins, really. And you don't look like a coward.
Good. They look good. Yeah.
But all these guys just giggle, or Jimmy Fallon scruffles Donald Trump's hair and stuff like that. And you're like, no, you could be doing your job and, taking the piss out of it. That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I personally don't expect Jimmy Fallon to ever do it. But
you know what? You're right.
The political satire of Jimmy
He's more
Fallon.
of a hair tossler type
You know what? Let
of
me
guy.
take down our Jimmy Fallon portrait.
Yeah. You got to take that down.
Let's take a quick break for our ads.
From Palantir and
Turkish Airlines,
Turkey and Israel. And
do you know Netanyahu was advertising on our show on YouTube? I had a friend send me a message. It's like, Bibi's advertising on your show, and I was like, sweet Jesus, they buy the keywords and stuff like that.
They do, yeah. No, I mean, I've had that happen all the time. Like the ads that get plugged in or whatever, like Ted Cruz campaign ads and shit. Stuff. Yeah, and again, and people don't
They think we're picking it.
You pick it or even allow it, and it's like, not with those.
Yeah, can't do it. All right.
No, word from our sponsors.
Word from our programmatic
Ted Cruz
ads.
and Benjamin Netanyahu.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Foreign Report. We got Trae Crowder. We got Travis Irvine. We're in the studio. This is like, we got multiple people here.
Hell yeah.
I love it. Okay.
We're talking 2026.
Yep.
Time to talk about 2028. Trey, your hat. We already touched on it a little bit.
Yep.
Fakehillbilly.com is where I can get the hat and probably a shirt and a hoodie and shorts.
They definitely want you to go there, so they hopefully I would think they'd be selling these. Be
Yes.
crazy if they're not. So check it out.
So we touched on it a little bit. JD Vance is going to have all of this whole mess of the second term hung around his neck in 2028. And we already said he doesn't have the swagger. He doesn't have the juice. How far do you think this guy gets? Because we talked about this last week on our show. This is what sinks vice presidents trying to go for the presidency the next go around, right? The whole administration. I mean, Al Gore from Tennessee fumbled out because Bill Clinton was he was popular, but he had all the scandals.
You said Kamala's the border czar or whatever, coming out of the Biden administration.
Exactly.
The whole, the crisis at the border, all that stuff that, got hung around her neck.
Yep.
So.
Well done, Joe.
Well done, Joe. Yeah, George H.W. Bush was the last president to become president after being vice president.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's really just so
I hadn't
rare.
really thought about that, but yeah.
So,
right.
How do you feel JD's looking for 2028? There's rumors he may not even go for it.
I mean, again, it sort of got brought up briefly earlier, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
As far as if he runs for it, I'm sure he'll he'll have a little bit of some traction probably as compared to the other ones, but he may not even make it out of
the primary.
The primary wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously this is like totally different and wild, but there was a while there when people were, again, this is funny to look back on in retrospect, but there was a while there when people were saying things like, and I bought into this, they're like, you think Trump is bad? Wait till the guy shows up who's like just as shitty as him, but is like not a complete fucking idiot and is actually competent. Like that's when we're really in trouble. And there was a while there when people were thinking that was going to be like Ron DeSantis, right?
Oh,
you remember that? When he was like, he was going to be the guy.
Yep.
Right. And then where did that go? And I don't think JD has as much riz as Ron DeSantis has, Right. It doesn't seem to be a rosy outlook to me. I wouldn't think. Like I said, I don't feel like anybody really likes him. There'd be people that would defend him and shit just because they're hardcore Trump and that he's the VP and whatever. But I don't think he really inspires anybody.
No, and even within the administration, people keep saying that he keeps getting left out of stuff, left out of meetings. When we went into Iran, he was in some other meeting room somewhere. He wasn't in the Situation Room.
I was thinking about that.
He had a little diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah, isn't that what the vice president's supposed to be?
Yeah,
kind of outside.
I was about to say, I thought I've gotten the impression before that the vice president kind of barely does anything.
Yeah,
but I think of when they killed Osama bin Laden. It's Joe Biden sitting next to Obama and Hillary Clinton was there.
Obviously Cheney's very different too.
Cheney was president.
Was the puppet master, right? Yeah, exactly. So obviously,
but I think generally Dan Quayle, look at all these other guys. They kind of are just doing their thing. I don't know about HW, but they just are kind of in the background. Joe Biden wanted to be in the mix all the time, and I think he helped Obama in that sense.
And JD's being actively left out, which is fun
because I think he peeped up. He peeped up in that Netanyahu meeting in the Situation Room about not going to war in Iran, and they were like, "JD out,
JD out, go drink your Mountain Dew,
room,
go."
Well, he also, he went to Hungary or whatever.
Yeah. He had a campaign for Orban.
Yeah. And he
shellacked.
Yeah, right.
He went to the Vatican to meet the Pope, and then the Pope died.
Right.
And then Orban got beat by another conservative.
Right.
He got beat by not just some leftist, but he got beat by
center-right.
He got center-righted, but that guy's conservative.
Well, who have the Dems got then in 2020? Who you liking? Because I'm still on the Andy Beshear train. If it's JD versus Andy Beshear, it's a real hillbilly versus a fake hillbilly. But I have so many Democrats Democrat friends would say Beshear just also doesn't seem to have juice. But I think Democrats like a Southern sounding.
You mean like but publicly or whatever? Because I talked to somebody recently who just met him, and they were like, and of course this person's a lefty and from Kentucky, but they had like met him personally, and he was like that guy's got it, man.
Oh, really?
That's what this guy.
Maybe he's
said.
getting better. I mean, I had friends. I mean, Beshear went on Bill Maher, which of course is like, well, whatever. But he didn't impress anybody there.
Well,
the good liars aren't impressed with him.
The thing about that is, we might have talked about this last time, not to go into like the whole story, but like, I don't just know one vice president. I also know my dear close personal friend, former Vice President Al Gore.
Yeah,
right? And
they're tight.
But the thing I tell people about him all the time that's wild to me, talking about my buddy meeting Beshear and be like, he rules, but everybody, you see him on TV and like, I don't get it.
Right.
Al Gore's whole thing when he ran against Bush was like, he's wooden,
he's
and
boring,
and like Bush is fun. You want to have a beer with him, whatever.
Yeah,
like
even
Al
though
Gore, he was
Bush
sober,
was sober, yeah.
But and Al Gore's like, he's just, I don't know. He's just like a stick in the mud, right? Like I'm telling you, in person, that guy just oozes charisma, bro.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like he's one of the coolest people. Like he like commands a room immediately. He's just like, it's wild. And so maybe Beshear's like in that same kind of vein. And the thing is that if he is, that sucks for him because, obviously Gore lost thanks to Florida and the Supreme Court or whatever. But that's a real problem that's hard to overcome. So maybe it's like, and I don't know what that is about how that translates or if the standard is just so different or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, I like him too. I think he's a good example of the type of candidate that, we need.
Rahm Emanuel. Thoughts?
No.
No.
No?
I don't-
Because he's doing a lot of shows.
He's doing a lot
I've
of
seen him
shows.
on a lot of things, and he doesn't need to be doing any of these things.
Right.
And he came out and said he would not give any more aid to Israel. He said they could buy weapons like everybody else.
Oh, okay.
He's
I didn't know what he'd been up to lately.
Well,
I
that's
just
the
knew that
thing.
he was
No,
like,
that's when you know someone's plotting something.
Yeah.
They're like, what have
he
you
was
been doing?
Chief of staff for Obama, and then I think an ambassador for Biden.
Oh,
But he's
mayor of Chicago.
That's right. But he's part of that Chicago crew, and so I would think he would back someone like J.B. Pritzker. Because Pritzker's got that.
too.
Pritzker's a billionaire. He can fund his own campaign. He can bring a lot of Midwest swagger to that whole thing.
yep.
I think Rahm's going to try to run. I mean, there's some really good
about-
long interviews. Because I think the thing about Rahm is that he speaks to the gut of people. He can really get in there and he'll yell. You're not going to bully him. He is the bully.
Oh.
He is the maniac. And
But do we want another bully
but
maniac?
people like to vote for a maniac.
People do seem to like a bully, man.
Yeah, they do like
I'm
that.
with
It's
you.
very
though.
popular,
But,
yeah.
like,
It's like, sure, I'd love, personally, I love, an intellectual professor. But, that
Right,
tends
right.
to
Yeah,
make people
gay.
very upset.
Yeah, speaking of which, like Mayor Pete, right?
Yeah,
like,
Mayor Pete.
I just don't think that, I
I
hate
don't
to
think-
be that way.
Yeah.
But just being realistic and
American
pragmatic,
ready. Yeah.
I just don't think at all. Not
Yeah,
even
yeah.
close. And like that, he keeps coming up about Kamala running again or whatever.
Please
it's like,
no.
Oh,
don't,
God,
please
don't do
no.
that.
Ugh.
So, yeah.
Honestly, I was, recently, I liked her as a DA. I liked her as something like,
Yeah,
dude, like a senator. I thought she was good as a senator, all that stuff was good.
Oh,
Corey-
and our boy Gavin, obviously.
Well,
The
Gavin.
guy,
We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, the
Gavin's-
big dog.
he's
Gavin.
going to announce his presidency from his own podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, with special guest Steve Bannon.
Oh, that episode was the worst. And that's the thing I don't like about him is that I think he has that same kind of glossing over, trying to, be, I don't want to say slimy, but there is a sense to him when he's just being too nice and too forgiving to people.
Yeah.
He's not pushing back on a Steve Bannon. He kind of tried, but he's like, you can try to find areas of agreement without making Steve Bannon, who is a fascist nationalist, into a likable person, which he did on his show.
Yeah. I mean, to him, having lived in California, it's, I feel like a lot of Californians don't like
Not crazy
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
It's like the idea that he's, the best shot for, the presidential candidacy just seems crazy to me. I mean, he's got the look or whatever, but like
he's definitely looks Maxon.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he is looks Maxon, which is a big part of it.
It is.
And JD Vance don't got that.
He's got a soft chin.
Right.
Listen, I think that was incredible.
Yeah.
We should probably wrap it up here.
We covered a lot of stuff.
Trey, you got anything coming up?
I got some West Coast dates coming up. San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland. Might not be that exact order, but they're all coming up soon. And then Florida, Spartanburg, Wilmington, a whole bunch of other places. And that's all at TraeCrowder.com, TRAE Crowder.com.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, guys, sign up for the newsletter. We'll see you guys next week, which I'm sure this war will be solved.
Yeah,
it'll be
we got
over.
a deal coming.
Regime change.
Howie Mandel's
Sweet
on it.
deal. Strait is open. He's on it. For Travis, I'm Seena. See you next time.